If you guys don't already know who I am, my name is Gabriel Varga. I'm a professional kickboxer. I've dabbled in MMA and I am now moving on to karate combat. I have over 30 years of experience in martial arts. I have been an active kickboxing competitor for over 16 years and a professional fighter for 13 years. I have, you can see behind me, 6 pro world titles to my name, and today, per request, I'm going to break down how you should approach a training camp, how you can prepare for a fight when it's about 2 months away. All right, everybody, I've honestly lost track, but about 45 fights, maybe a couple over that, but I've had at least 15 training camps that I almost completed, but the fight fell through. Sometimes 2 weeks away, sometimes the day of. So I have prepped up for fights at least 60 times in my life, and I have it really dialed in now, the best way to go about preparing to make sure you get that win. Now, I've already done a couple videos on this subject. If it's your first fight, I will link those up there, but this will be more of a general tutorial if you're just about to go into your first fight camp, or if you still don't really understand what a fight camp is, or you just want to prepare better for your next upcoming fight. Now, the first thing that I would advise you to do before you worry about any of the training is make sure you find a good trainer. And yes, I'm here for you guys as much as I can possibly be. I'm on YouTube. You guys can always reach out to me at my email, vargabros@yahoo.ca, and you can book a one-on-one Zoom private with me where we can focus on any issues you might be having. It could be your technique. It could be nerves. It could be how to prep for your next fight if you don't think this is enough of a comprehensive overview to the subject. So I'm always there for you guys if you want to chat with me one-on-one. But for the purposes of today, I'm telling you guys, I'm saying you need to find a good gym. You need to find a good coach. Because if you don't have that, and you're not at the level that I'm at, then what's going to happen is you're going to start making a lot of technical errors. I did not really go out on my own. I did not sort of take my own training under my own wing until I was a professional fighter and had already won multiple amateur world titles. And I'd been training for at least 15 years at that point. And still, in spite of that, I have my pad holders, I have my brother when he's around who can help me, who can make corrections, because yes, I make mistakes. I make them constantly and I need to correct them every time. So you need a good coach for your training camp and to help you prep up for a fight. What are we looking for when I say a good coach? Well, ideally, we're looking at somebody who's going to give you some love, who when you're in the gym doesn't just say, do this, do this, do this, and never comes over and makes corrections. You want somebody who's actively engaging with their students, making sure they're coming over and they're putting in the time, and sometimes even after class coming over and just talking one-on-one with students and just telling them little things that they can continue to work on. You will see the passion, you will see the commitment to teaching with a good instructor. Now, an instructor doesn't necessarily need to be a former world champion to be a very good teacher, to be able to create world champions. But what I will say that you should be on the lookout for is, number one, have they had a decent amount of fights? Have they won any titles? If they've done those, that's a good start. If they haven't done those, how many world champions or how many local champions have they created? Have they trained? If they haven't done any of that, then you need to really, really be on the lookout and make sure you have the best instructor possible in your city, in that region which you live. Now from here, I want to move on and I want to talk about the length of a training camp. And that is dramatically different for each person. But I will say, if you're somebody who's constantly training year round, you're not taking big breaks, you're not taking big breaks after fights because you're constantly looking to improve your skill level, then a training camp can be much shorter because you're already in good shape and you're already actively in the gym all the time. In that case, 6 weeks, in my opinion, is enough. This is what I often did when I was an amateur fighter. I'd be training and training and training. Then I'd go, okay, there's a fight for me in 6-7 weeks. And I'd start prepping up really hard for that, and specifically starting to train for a certain style that my opponent might have. If you're somebody who takes a little bit of a break between fights, or you're not actively training super hard and you feel like you have more work to do, then I would advise stretching that training camp out to more like 2 months. Anything beyond that is going to start really burning you down unless you're a professional fighter like myself who does 10 weeks, but I do that because I take the first couple of weeks to ease on in and I don't go too hard in those initial 14 days. And then after I feel in better shape, I ramp up and I do the full 2-month training camp. So for you guys, 6 weeks to 8 weeks I think is ideal. During this time period, let's start off and let's talk about diet. Should you be doing anything different? And I say absolutely yes. I change up my diet as soon as training camp starts. For me, I cut out anything that I sort of deem as junk food, anything that is not going to help my body perform better. And I just look at it as a sacrifice which is necessary. And does it make that much of a difference? Does it help you get the win? I don't honestly know. But if it gives me 0.5% more in my skill level, more in my energy, more in my fitness, whatever that might be, I'm going to take it. And yes, I will sacrifice any junk food to get that win. And aside from that, my diet is already pretty on point. If you have weight to lose, you have some fat you want to get rid of, just, cut down a little bit on your carbs, cut down on the greasy food, the fast food, things like that, which you shouldn't be eating anyway. But if you are, go the extra mile for training camp and get really healthy. The next thing I'm looking to do in fight camp is really boost up my cardio. Now, if we're looking at how we want to sort of spread that out, let's say over 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks, half of your training camp is going to be really trying to push the level upwards. You're going to be challenging yourself because you're probably not in as good shape as you will be after that month is completed. So you'll probably have aching muscles, and it's going to hurt a little bit, but once you get over that hump, then everything after, in my experience, is much easier. The ground you have to cover is very hard in the first 4 weeks. You make a lot of progress, but then after, it's just small little improvements to the cardio, and you really try and dial it in so that on fight day, you have amazing energy. How do I go about doing this? Well, road work for me is my go-to. Now, you don't have to do road work. You can do swimming. You can do bikes, like those CrossFit bikes. I think they're called Rogue bikes, something like that. Assault bikes, that's what they're called. You can do anything like that, but you need to do something outside of your fight-specific sport, which is going to challenge you in a different way. For me, it's road work. I will link a couple videos up there, which you can look at. You can see routines that I like to utilize. And if you are somebody who's an amateur fighter and you're going, okay, let's talk about volume. How much should I be running versus how much should I be training? I'm just going to tell you guys what I was doing when I was an amateur fighter. Not when I was fighting for the world titles at amateur level, because then I was taking things a little more seriously. But for my first 10 fights, I'm going to tell you guys what I was doing. Because I had school, I was teaching martial arts, and I had another job. So I was a busy guy on top of training. I did not have time to do the 2 training sessions a day. I didn't even have time actually to do a training session every day in kickboxing, so I had to spread things out. So for me, it was, I believe, Monday was a running day, but I didn't have a lot of time. So we're just talking about a 20-30 minute run whenever I could fit it in. Day number 2 was kickboxing, 1.5 to 2 hours. Wednesday was back to running. Thursday, kickboxing. Friday, a run. Saturday was back to about a 2-hour kickboxing session, and then Sunday off. And that's my whole week. We add that up, it's about 7.5 hours of physical exercise. And for me, that was plenty. My cardio was great. It was on point. Obviously, when I got further in my career, I improved. But realistically, I think anywhere between 6 and 10 hours per week is plenty of training when you're in the first 10 fights of your career. Now, next I want to talk about what the focus should be in the kickboxing gym or MMA or boxing or whatever your specific fight sport is. We want to be looking at accomplishing a couple things that really going to set you on your way to winning your fights. Number 1, your offense. That is obviously super important. It's a priority in most gyms. It's something we train all the time. Offense, we learn how to punch, kick. When we are thinking about our offense, I am basically looking for a couple things that you need to be able to do to start building up and becoming a higher level competitor. Number 1, You need to have power. You need to be able to hurt your opponents, because if you cannot hurt them, they will not respect you, and then the fight is going to have a whole different dynamic. And I know this because when I sort of recognize that they can't really hurt me, then I start just sort of not rushing in, but I just start walking through their shots to get my own shots off. So if you're looking to increase your power, you can do that either, number one, just by getting a sort of strength training routine together. But that's nothing that I've really focused on. What I have focused on is hitting as hard as I can when I'm on bag work and pad work. Really pushing my body to the max and just getting used to that impact and aiming through, and then just getting that feedback from training partners when I'm hitting pads that, whoa, those shots are really hard, and if that landed, yes, it would hurt. And the next thing I'd be looking for is the ability to string combinations together that are going to be dangerous. What I mean by that is if every time on pad work and bag work and everything, you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you might get that off 5 or 6 times, and then people are going to start recognizing, well, geez, this guy is not creative, and all I have to do is keep my hands up and I'll block everything. We want to be able to put together combinations and sort of a pattern of fighting that is unpredictable. And we do that by constantly, when we train, thinking of somebody in front of us. So if I'm shadowboxing, instead of me just going and thinking about something I'm going to do later, I'm actively imagining somebody in front of me. I hit them, they block up high, I come down low. I go back to defense, they throw a couple shots. Oh, they threw a shot there, I come back with my counter. And I'm actively engaging the way I would when I'm in the fight. And it's like that mental chess match instead of just going through the motions. When you can get that kind of offensive work in, where you hit hard and you're unpredictable and you can find the openings, you become a dangerous fighter. Now, offense is something that every gym pretty much, that's all you do. Offense, offense, offense. But do not forget about the defense. That's the next thing. Can you block shots? I would never put somebody into the ring if I did not feel comfortable in their ability to defend themselves. What do I mean by that? Well, you guys have heard me on the channel before talk about put your back or your glutes, more likely, up against the ring ropes or a wall. And then from there have somebody punch at you. You know, they just come forward, they punch about that fast. I'm only going like 30%, and you should be able to just guard up, whether it's slipping, parrying, or just shelling, and deal with those shots. You should also be able to take kicks, have those mixed in as well if you're fighting in MMA, Muay Thai, or kickboxing. Remember, the offense is only half of it, the defense is the other half, and most people don't spend enough time focusing on the defense. So once you have your offense dialed in, you're dangerous there. Defensively, I go, okay, this guy is sound. If somebody comes in and throws 20 hard punches at him when he's tired, he will be able to stand there and not get hurt, not get knocked down or knocked out. I go, okay, good. We're on our way to getting some solid movement forward to where you're going to be ready for that fight. Now from there, let's talk about what I look to be the most important thing when you go to the gym. What are the 3 things that are really, really going to make that fight that much easier for you? Number 1, pad work. You need a good pad holder to make the pad work worth doing. But when you're doing pad work, you can hit as hard as you want. This guy is going to push you by creating combinations and a pace which you might not be comfortable with, but that's good. That's what we need. From there, when you're doing your pad work, make sure you're recreating the fight. So if you're fighting 5 2-minute rounds, you're able to go full out 5 2-minute rounds on the pads. Ba-bang, bang, 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 ba-bang. And just make sure that everything you're doing is feeling really sharp and you get a lot of confidence from that pad work. Next, you should be sparring. Now, there's a lot of talk, and I could go into a whole different episode on how you should be sparring. I'm not going to do that today. But you do need some hard sparring. I'm not saying every session needs to be the point where you walk out with a headache. That shouldn't be happening really at all. But you do need to put in those hard rounds. If you are prepping up for a fight, make sure you're able to do the amount that you're fighting, the amount of rounds you're fighting. So if you're doing 5 rounds at 2 minutes, you can do that. And I'd say add an extra round just in case. Make sure your sparring partners are able to push you and you're not just sparring with guys that you can pick apart and give you no challenge. Now from there, the next thing that I deem being very important in the gym as you're prepping for a fight is body conditioning. There's so many other things we can do in the gym, right? You can work on that defense, you can do bag work, you can do shadow boxing, skipping, all that. But something that's very important, which a lot of people don't take extra moments for, is that body conditioning. What do I mean by that? Well, recently I put out a video about my wife low kicking my leg over and over just to show how tough your leg needs to be. If you're in the gym and you have 5-10 minutes after class, have somebody punch you in the body, maybe kick you in the ribs a little bit, chop your legs, because let's be real, this is a contact sport. If you are not a strong individual, you're not able to absorb shots, deal with pain, and not give up, it's going to be very difficult to win the fight. So getting that body conditioned for pain and being able to sort of brush it aside and go, oh, you know what? It's not that bad. I'll make it through the fight. I'll deal with the bumps and bruises a couple days after. That's the mindset we want. In terms of shin conditioning, which a lot of people ask about, for the shin conditioning, kick the bag, kick the pads. You don't need to do anything extra for that. Those shins will get hardened just by hitting nice pads and a good bag. And the final thing for today, because I could go on for a long time, but we got to keep this episode somewhat controlled in length, is we're going to talk about the mental side of the whole aspect of fighting. Because fighting is scary. Any sport is scary because you're putting yourself out there. But when I look at guys who, let's say, compete in tennis and the nerves just wreck them because they're so looking forward to winning, they expect that they need to win because there's so much weight on their shoulders from all their supporters. Let's say I go, okay, I respect that and I know that's hard, but you are not leaving the tennis court with a broken nose or knocked out or having your leg chopped down. Those are not things that are going to happen. You're going to leave and your pride is going to be wounded, but your physical body will not be wounded. You will not have the same injuries that come from fight sports. So keeping that in mind, fight sports and prepping up mentally is a whole different ballgame, because you might go, I don't want to lose, and that's fair. That happens in all sports. But what does not happen in most other sports is you're going, I don't want to lose and I don't want to get hurt. So we have to be able to mentally prepare for both of these. How do I go about doing that? Well, number one, I train super hard. I train hard enough that I know when I get in the ring, I've given everything I could and I'm as prepared as I could possibly be. Knowing that instills confidence. With that confidence comes that ability to not be as scared as you might be if you did not put in the hours in the gym to train hard enough. In addition, I do mental work, visualization, to make sure that I go through the moments that might be scary and I pre-live those experiences so that the time comes when it actually happens, I don't freak out, I don't get as nervous in the same way, because I go, you know what? I've already done this 10, 15, 20, sometimes 50 times during fight camp. I close my eyes. I think on the part of the fight that makes me very nervous. It might be squaring off against my opponent, looking him in the eyes. It might be seeing them for the first time in the hotel lobby. It might be the warm-up before the fight. Whatever it is, I go through it. And I go through it. I take 5 minutes. I run through it in my mind. And again, when it comes time to actually happening, it's not quite as scary for me. You can also give yourself positive encouragement, motivation, and sort of instilling that confidence by repeating things to yourself that you are coming for a victory and that you are going to win. So sometimes when I'm out running, I'm in the middle of my jog and I'm starting to get tired. Instead of focusing on my breathing, going, oh my God, oh, everything hurts, I just start talking to myself, just nice and quiet, but enough that I can hear it and I'm actually verbalizing it. I'm not just thinking it. And it helps me sort of dial in my breathing, but it also takes my mind off the pain. And I'm constantly saying to myself, you're going to win the fight. And I say my next record. So in the past when I was doing it when I was an amateur, I'd say 14-0, 14-0. I can't be beat. I'm going to win the fight. This fight is yours. Something like that. Okay? And I keep saying that to myself as I do my workout. And I just find that it's such a motivational boost. And when I finish my workout, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling good. Feel like I'm going to come out the victor on fight night. And that's what we want. Because yes, nerves will arise. And yes, you are going to have moments in training camp. Might be at the gym. Might be when you're at home watching a movie where you go, oh shoot, what if I lose? And it just pops into your mind and you try to get rid of it and it just does not want to go away. And that's fine. You don't need to be scared of that. You just think back on all the hard training you did and you just tell yourself that, yes, I'm prepped up. And then at some point that will flip and you're in the middle of your workout and you're like, whoa, I'm feeling good today. Oh, I'm going to win this fight. And then that sticks around for a long time. And then at some point it might flip back and like, oh shoot, what if I lose? But in my experience, about 90 to 95% of the fight camp and the thought process that goes on in my mind is positive. And that's really what we want. A little bit of fear is good because it keeps us honest with ourselves. If you walk around constantly like, yeah, I can't lose the fight, it's never going to happen, I think that's dangerous. I like the little bit of fear and a little bit of hesitancy in the victory. But overall, I'm very positive about getting my wins. And like I said, guys, I could go on and on about how you should prepare for your first fight if it is about 8 weeks away. But I think in general, we have covered most of the stuff that is important to you. Remember, you start slow in training camp. And then for the first 2 weeks at least, then you ramp things up. And then in the last week, you really ramp things up. And you really try to peak out your conditioning. And then you just do a little taper down. For most of you guys, if you're not cutting too much weight, maybe 2 days of rest before you compete. A lot of the other guys who are cutting a lot of weight, maybe 4 or 5 days. Because it's just hard to train at that full-blown, given everything you have, when your body's losing that weight and you just don't have all your energy. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, if you found it helpful, please share it with somebody else. Of course, give the video a like if you have not already. Join the channel and get subscribed. 100,000 subscribers for this channel is right around the corner. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys so much new exciting ideas I have for this channel now that we've passed, or we will be passing, the 100,000 mark. Guys, continue to train hard, get those wins, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.